Breaking news, my friends. Take a deep breath, Detroit fans, because the roar is back. The Detroit Lions just earned a massive win over the Washington Commanders, showing strength, focus, and attitude from start to finish. The offense clicked early with well-designed plays, quick passes, and explosive runs that kept the defense on its heels. The offensive line held strong, giving time and confidence, while the defense answered with energy and intensity, forcing mistakes and dominating the trenches. It was the kind of game where every unit stepped up, and the result showed on the scoreboard, a solid, deserved win that reignites the confidence of every Lions fan. So you already know, right? Smash that like button, help the channel grow, and drop a comment below. Go Lions, I believe. Because tonight, my friends, Detroit proved there's still plenty of fight left in this team. What a turnaround. What we witnessed was not just a victory, it was a statement. Dan Campbell took over play calling, and the result was a Lions offense that didn't punt a single time. Think about that for a second. Not one punt. From the very first drive, it was clear something had shifted. The rhythm was different. The energy was different. The team finally looked like the version of the Detroit Lions that fans have been begging to see all season long. The change wasn't about luck or coincidence. It was about leadership, accountability, and the head coach stepping in when it mattered most. This team had been stuck in neutral under John Morton's direction. The play calling had grown predictable, stale, and frustrating to watch. Fans saw it, players felt it, and Campbell, to his credit, didn't ignore it. He made the gutsy call to take over, just as he did once before with Anthony Lynn. And what happened next? The Lions looked alive again. Jared Goff delivered a masterclass, 25 completions on 33 attempts, 320 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The offense flowed. The tempo was sharp. There were barely any penalties. It looked like the Lions of old, explosive, balanced, and fearless. Jahmyr Gibbs looked like the offensive player of the year. Jameson Williams finally looked like the weapon everyone always believed he could be. He hauled in 119 yards, every catch a reminder of how much talent this kid has when he's actually given a chance. All it took was a change in philosophy, a shift from safe football to Lions football, aggressive, creative, and confident. For weeks, people said Williams wasn't producing, that maybe it was time to move on from him. But anyone paying attention could see the issue wasn't the player, it was the play calling. Campbell saw it too, and when he took control, everything changed. Gone were the endless screens and timid calls. The Lions mixed up their looks. Play action, power runs, quick slants, motion before the snap. It wasn't just effective, it was unpredictable again. That's what made this offense so hard to defend last season, and that's what returned when Campbell grabbed the wheel. The man coached with instinct and conviction, listening to his players and trusting his gut. The team responded instantly. The sideline energy told the whole story. Relief, joy, belief. Detroit was having fun again, and it wasn't just offense. The defense held strong too. Jack Campbell was flying around. The group contained Marcus Mariota and executed smart situational football, especially in key fourth down moments. Even the backups on the offensive line stepped in and held their ground, showing that this wasn't just a win, it was a total team effort. You could feel it. The swagger was back. The communication was back. The confidence was back. The game ended 44-22. Total domination on the road. Some might say Washington isn't a strong opponent, but that doesn't matter. What mattered was the way Detroit played, decisive, efficient, and fearless. This was a team that had rediscovered its identity. Every drive felt intentional. Every call had purpose. And for the first time in a while, it felt like Dan Campbell's Lions again, the version that made Detroit believe in football all over again. Now, here's the question every fan is asking. What happens next with John Morton? Does he stay on the staff? Does he get reassigned, like Anthony Lynn once was? Nobody knows yet. But one thing is certain, this offense works with Dan Campbell calling plays. It's his personality on display. No excuses, no hesitation, just pure Detroit grit. And if that's what we can expect moving forward, then maybe this season isn't just about survival, it's about revival. The next test? Philadelphia. On the road. A heavyweight matchup that could decide much more than a single win or loss. It could shape playoff seeding, confidence, and the entire narrative of the NFC. The Eagles are loaded, they're aggressive, and they've been one of the toughest teams in football all year. But if the Lions keep this same energy, if they play with this same balance and belief, then why not us? Why not Detroit? The team's getting healthier. The chemistry is returning. The locker room feels united again, and after this performance, you can feel the hope creeping back into every conversation about this team. The fans are starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, the best version of the Lions hasn't even arrived yet, because when you think about it, what Dan Campbell did wasn't just about X's and O's, it was about taking ownership of his team's identity. For weeks, Detroit looked like a group that had lost its spark. The playbook had gone stale, the rhythm was gone, and fans could feel the frustration through the screen. Then suddenly, one decision brought it all back. That's what leadership looks like, not waiting until it's too late, but acting when you know something's wrong. Campbell didn't just tweak a few plays, he completely flipped the tone of the offense. And that's why this game might go down as one of the most defining moments of the Lions season. You could see it in the way Jared Goff carried himself. He wasn't just managing the game, he was commanding it. He was sharp, in control, and confident again. When your head coach believes in the offense and calls plays with purpose, it filters down to every player on the field. Goff trusted his reads, the offensive line protected with pride, and the skilled players thrived. Gibbs exploded through holes. Montgomery punished defenders with every carry. And Jameson Williams? He finally looked like the deep threat this offense was built for. Every route had intent. Every snap had energy. That's what happens when the coaching connects with the players. Even the little details stood out. The play-action fakes that froze defenders. The quick slants that created separation. The motion before the snap that forced Washington to adjust on the fly. The Lions weren't just running plays. They were dictating the game. They were proactive, not reactive. It was the complete opposite of what we had seen from John Morton's system. For weeks, fans had been shouting about the same issues. Too many screens, too much hesitation, not enough creativity. Dan Campbell heard them, and his players clearly did too. And maybe that's the biggest story here, how much the team responded to him. The sideline looked alive again. You could see smiles, energy, high fives. It wasn't robotic football anymore. It was the brand of Lions football that earned this team national respect last year. Aggressive, fearless, unapologetic. The kind of football that forces the opponent to adapt to you. When you take a step back, you realize how rare it is for a head coach to make this kind of mid-season adjustment and have it work immediately. It takes humility to admit that something isn't working. It takes courage to take on that responsibility yourself. And it takes absolute trust from your locker room to follow you into that decision. Dan Campbell had all three. He didn't hide behind excuses or blame injuries. He said, "No more excuses," and the team followed his lead. And look at the results. A 44-22 win, total offensive control, and a team that finally looks like it's having fun again. You could see how much it meant to the players, especially the offense. They looked free, like a group that finally got out of a system that had been holding them back. And for fans, that's everything. Because it's not just about the numbers or the stats, it's about watching a team that plays with heart again. Now, as we look toward Philadelphia, the question becomes how sustainable this version of the Lions really is. Can they take this same energy into a matchup with one of the NFC's toughest defenses? The Eagles won't make it easy. They've got a deep front, a smart secondary, and a reputation for breaking teams that aren't disciplined. But if Dan Campbell keeps calling the offense the way he did in this game, mixing tempo, keeping defenses guessing, and using every weapon available, then there's no reason to think the Lions can't hang with anyone in the league. It's no coincidence that every time this team plays with creativity and balance, they look elite. We've seen glimpses of it before, but this game proved something deeper, that the Lions' ceiling is determined by how bold they're willing to be. When Campbell is bold, this team is dangerous. When they play safe, they get ordinary. That's the line between being a contender and being forgotten in January. So now the fans are asking, if this new offensive spark continues, could we be looking at the real Detroit Lions again? The version that was built to punch first, not react. The version that isn't afraid of anyone in the NFC. Because if the Lions keep this same attitude, same urgency, and same play-calling aggression, there's no ceiling for this group. And that's the exciting part. After everything this franchise has been through, the ups, the downs, the heartbreak, it finally feels like the heart of Detroit football is beating again. You can feel it in the energy around this team, in the way they talk, the way they play, the way they respond to their coach. The connection is real. So I'll leave it to you, Lions fans. Do you believe this change marks the true turning point of the season? Is this the moment where everything shifts, and Detroit takes back its identity for good? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're ready to ride this wave all the way through the season, hit that subscribe button, drop a like to support the channel, and check out the next video on screen. Let's keep this conversation going. Go Lions! Because let's be honest, what we saw wasn't just a one-game spark. It felt like the beginning of something much bigger. You could sense it in the way players carried themselves after the final whistle, how they spoke in interviews, how they interacted with Dan Campbell on the sideline. That wasn't relief, that was belief. Belief that they're back to being the team that everyone feared facing last year. Belief that this offense, when guided by the right hands, can compete with anyone in the league. And most importantly, belief that the locker room is united again. You can always tell when a team is clicking. The small details start to stand out. The timing between quarterback and receiver, the confidence on third down, the poise in the pocket. Jared Goff wasn't just completing passes, he was commanding the offense like a true veteran leader. His eyes were steady, his progressions were sharp, and his connection with his playmakers was pure rhythm. That's the kind of football that gives this fan base hope. And Jameson Williams, what a difference. For weeks, fans were torn about him, frustration, criticism, confusion. But this game reminded everyone why Detroit drafted him in the first place. The speed, the explosion, the big play potential. When the play calling finally put him in a position to succeed, he delivered. Every time he touched the ball, you could feel the crowd's energy through the screen. It's almost poetic, a young player finally freed from a system that never truly used him right. Same with Jahmyr Gibbs. The kid looked electric again. His cuts, his vision, his patience, everything was clicking. He was used creatively, not just as a traditional back but as a weapon. That's the kind of versatility this team has been sitting on, and it took Dan Campbell's willingness to shake things up to unlock it. You can't help but think about how different things might have looked if this switch had come earlier in the year. But here's what matters now. It's happened. The change has been made. The Lions' offense finally looks like the one we were promised. No more overthinking. No more holding back. Just pure Detroit football, aggressive, balanced, smart, and relentless. And now all eyes are on Philadelphia. It's not just another regular season matchup, it's a measuring stick. A battle between two of the NFC's top teams, both chasing the same goal. The Eagles are physical, disciplined, and built for playoff football. But here's the thing. So are the Lions. When they play like this, when the offense is fearless and the defense stays disciplined, Detroit can go toe-to-toe with anyone. This isn't about proving something to the league anymore, it's about proving something to themselves. Because this game will test everything Dan Campbell just reignited. Can this new energy travel? Can the offensive creativity hold up against a top-tier defense? Can the team sustain that same balance?